Have you ever heard of Lilith, Adam's secret first wife that refused to submit and became the mother of demons? What about the banned story of Eve that reveals that she was the one that gave life to Adam? And what about Eve's secret daughter, Norea, who was so powerful, God was afraid of her? No? Well, that's because they've been carefully erased and their message silenced by the church. But today, we're revealing banned ancient texts and spotlighting the forgotten heroines and rebels of Eden. We're delving into the story of three fierce, boundary-pushing, badass women who dared to defy the will of God. Get ready, because this isn't your Sunday school's Bible story. Prepare for a journey into the unknown, an exploration of the banned, the unspoken, the controversial, and the shocking as we resurrect the stories of the ultimate spiritual rebels, Lilith, Eve, and Norea. But first, make sure that you like and subscribe right now and become a part of our rebellion of the mind. Tap subscribe and let's shake the foundations of the world by spreading information. Knowledge is our rebellion. Join us. Meet Lilith, a symbol deeply embedded in Jewish folklore and mythology, especially in the mystic text of the Kabbalah and the Talmud. According to legend, she was the first woman to ever set foot into the Garden of Eden before Eve even made her debut. Even before the stories of the Hebrew Bible, the roots of Lilith are found in ancient Mesopotamian myths, where she was known among the Lilu demons, associated with the night and regarded as a harbinger of disease, illness, and death. Now, when it comes to the creation story, from the beginning, things were rocky in paradise. Adam demanded Lilith's submission, expecting her to always be beneath him. But Lilith, with her fiery spirit, demanded equality. In a text central to her legend, the alphabet of Ben Sirah, Lilith said, "I will not lie beneath you. I am also made from dust and therefore am your equal." Well, this argument didn't sit very well with Adam or the Almighty, but Lilith refused to back down. She uttered the ineffable name of God, and in doing so, sprouted wings soaring away from Eden, from Adam's dominance, and from the patriarchal chains. In Lilith, we find the earliest embers of feminist rebellion, a symbol of female empowerment and a challenge to traditional gender roles. In the 20th century, the symbol of Lilith became a symbol of feminism. Lilith chose exile, freedom, and autonomy over subservience, becoming the first rebel, the original feminist, the misunderstood outcast in spiritual history. But God, in his eternal wisdom, decided he needed a do-over. Adam needed a companion, but this time one that would be submissive, compliant, a helpmeet. Hence, Eve was created. But note the stark difference in her creation. So unlike Lilith, who was created from the same dust as Adam, symbolizing their equality, Eve was made from Adam's rib, a piece of him, inherently lesser, a derivative. The symbolism was not very subtle here. Eve was to be beneath Adam, a helper, not an equal. But what if all that was a lie? What if the story that we've been told, the narrative that we've swallowed about Adam and Eve and God, was actually a grand cover-up? Well, enter Gnosticism, an ancient Christian religious movement that emerged in the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, presenting a completely different perspective of the Bible stories that we've come to know. Gnosticism claimed to hold secrets, a so-called divine knowledge, or gnosis, that revealed the path to escaping the material world. The Gnostics, whose texts were systematically banned and destroyed by the early church, were rediscovered near the tombs of Egypt in 1945, and in their texts, they reveal that Eve is not just an obedient subordinate created from Adam's rib, but a divine being in her own right, a symbol of life, wisdom, and truth. In the Gnostic texts, Eve comes from the realm of divine light and is an illuminator, the life giver, the first comforter. She's not a secondary derivative creation, but an entity that embodies the divine's wisdom. See, for the Gnostics, she's called Zoe, or Zoe, the Greek word for life, a strong, independent figure who represents the life-giving aspect of the divine feminine, a far cry from the submissive mate that we've been told about in the Bible. In the Gnostic text called On the Origin of the World, we discover a secret version of creation that defies the story in the Bible, a version that shatters the patriarchal mold and redefines the roles of Adam and Eve. See, this book reveals that God, in his first attempt to create man, failed. Yeah, you heard that right. Adam was a dud, a lifeless form, unable to even stand, devoid of the spark of life. Well, Eve is revealed to be a divine entity of light, a true life giver. See, in this story, it's Eve who gives life to Adam. She's not a derivative creation. She's actually the embodiment of divine wisdom and the essence of life itself. Eve is the one who breathes life into Adam's lifeless form, illuminating his existence and setting the stage for humanity. The text reads, "When Adam saw Eve, he said, 'You will be called the mother of the living because you are the one who gave me life.' But why couldn't God give Adam life? Well, the text reveals that the God of what would become the Bible is a lesser evil entity, a being of shadow known as an archon, a term that means ruler. This God is no divine being of light, but an imposter attempting to fool creation into believing that it is God. This so-called God and his angels, which are also archons, are afraid of Eve, and their fear drives them to come up with a plot against her, and they plan to force themselves on her and violate her. Why? Because it's an attempt to confine her to the material world. But Eve laughs at their attempt, and she leaves behind an illusory material version of herself with Adam. And so the imposter God and his archons, confused and terrified by Eve's power, create a desperate plan. The archons cause Adam to fall into a deep sleep and make him forget all the events that unfolded. While he's sleeping, they plant a deceitful lie. They whisper in his ear that Eve was created from his rib, insinuating that she's a lesser creation, a derivative, so that the woman will serve and he'll rule over her. The text says, "But let us not tell Adam. Rather, let us bring a stupor upon him and suggest to him in his sleep that she came into his being from his rib, so that the woman may serve and he may rule over her." But remember, now this is the material Eve. The real Eve, the divine Zoe, is unowned, uncontrolled, and free. But Eve is a powerful force of light, and she refuses to let the Archon's lies spread and infect humanity. So she embarks on a mission of enlightenment, sowing seeds of rebellion against their false story. Now let's talk about a little something called the Tree of Knowledge. You know, the one that God supposedly forbade Adam and Eve to eat from? Well, ask yourself this, isn't it strange that the Tree of Knowledge was placed right in the Garden of Eden if God didn't want them to eat from it? And why did he say that they would die if they did? Well, according to this text, Eve is the one who is responsible for the tree being in the garden. It was Eve's secret weapon, so to speak, in her battle of wisdom against the Archons. This tree was a beacon of truth and enlightenment, a symbol of rebellion against the Archons' false narrative. In Gnostic teachings, this tree symbolized the pursuit of knowledge and spiritual enlightenment. It wasn't a trap, but rather a beacon urging souls towards truth. Now, God and his Archons tried to keep them away by telling them that they would die if they ate the fruit. But in another Gnostic text, it's revealed that Eve actually appears as the serpent. And far from being an evil tempter, as depicted in the Bible, Gnostic texts celebrate the serpent as a symbol of wisdom and liberation. While the Bible painted it as public enemy number one, the Gnostic version hailed the serpent as a truth teller, trying to expose the Archon's grand deception. So Eve, the being of light, disguised herself as a serpent and daringly urges the material Eve and Adam to take a bite from the forbidden fruit. Why? To break free from the chains of ignorance and to expose the Archon's lies, and so that they will realize their true nature as divine beings of light trapped in the material world. And when they ate, it ripped apart the veil of illusion and exposed the Archons and the so-called God for what they truly were. And they saw these so-called deities of light were actually nothing more than repulsive entities of darkness with beastly forms. The forbidden fruit of knowledge granted them the power to see beyond the lies and revealed truth. In response, God and the archons, consumed by rage, cast them out of the garden. But that's not the end of the story, because this is where Eve's secret daughter comes in. Our third rebel, Norea, is a woman who made the archons tremble. See, Norea was not a woman to be messed with. She was an inferno, a storm, an embodiment of resistance against the oppressive archonic forces. Norea, the daughter that they don't want you to know about, is the rebel they fear. It's all in another book once banned by the church called The Reality of the Rulers, or The Hypostasis of the Archons. Norea was the fiery embodiment of rebellion and resistance. God and the archons, they weren't done playing their deceitful games. Humanity was evolving, and their consciousness was expanding. They were growing too smart, too aware, and so these dark rulers of the cosmos couldn't have that, could they? So what's a divine dictator to do when his power is threatened? Purge the world with a flood, that's what. But here's where the story takes a wild turn, because according to this forbidden text, it wasn't humanity's sins or wickedness that caused the flood. No, see, the flood was God's desperate attempt to keep humanity in perpetual ignorance, to keep them in chains, to drown the spark of enlightenment that had started to ignite within them. God and the archons, they were terrified. They feared losing their grip on humanity, and so they plotted to wipe the slate clean and start from scratch. In a Gnostic text called The Apocalypse of Adam, it's revealed that they cut a deal with Noah, promising him salvation from the flood, but in return, Noah and his descendants were to pledge eternal servitude, to be slaves to these cosmic tyrants. But our fiery rebel Norea wasn't having any of it. She saw through their lies, and she stood defiant and blew on Noah's ark, and when she did, it was consumed in fire and burnt to ashes. But things are about to get even more shocking, because after this, God and the archons went to meet Norea, and the archons tried to deceive her like they did with Adam and Eve. They wanted her under their control, another puppet in their scheme, but Norea saw right through their lies and their deception and their pathetic attempts to rule. Instead of cowering in fear, she stood tall. They tried to intimidate her by telling her that they violated her mother Eve. But Norea replied, that wasn't her real mother. Norea is a child of the divine Eve, the force of light, and she told them that she has come from the world above. God and his archons, not backing down, told her that she must service them like her mother. But cutting them off in mid-sentence, she stood defiant in her power and called upon the realm of light, the power that binds the cosmos together. And what happened? God and the archons, those so-called divine rulers, the beings of shadow, they ran away. Norea was the embodiment of the true divine power, the real deal. She dared to challenge the so-called rulers, and she won. But here's where things get real, because the church, Christianity, that supposed beacon of morality, has been lying to humanity. Of course, they don't want us to know about stories like Lilith, the divine Eve, and Norea. These are defiant symbols of female power, and they've been building a patriarchal system, manipulating texts and twisting divine messages to uphold the rule of men. They've painted a picture of a world where the divine is male, where authority is male, but let me tell you, that's all BS. This isn't about faith or piety, it's about control. They want us to believe that women are secondary, subservient, lesser, but it's just another one of their lies. Like the archons, they're afraid of the power women hold, the divine essence that Lilith, Eve, and Norea embody. Just look at how they use Eve to try and subjugate women. I used to be a Christian, and I know firsthand how they do this. You want proof? They use the story of Eve as depicted in the Bible as a weapon to bind us, to control us. They say that Adam was formed first, then Eve, and that Eve was the first sinner, that she was deceived, and that she brought sin into the world. They use her as a way to keep us afraid and to spread the idea that women are lesser than men. Just look at 1 Timothy 2, 8 through 15. The Bible says, "A woman must learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing." This is manipulative and totally disgraceful. I remember being taught this verse as I was growing up, and how do you think that affects people, being raised with ideas like this? No wonder the world is a mess. Just look at what's going on right now, all over. We need more divine Eves, more Liliths, more Noreas, more people of all genders to challenge the patriarchy, to defy the Adam first narrative. We need their spirit, their courage, their resilience more than ever in this messed up world. Rejecting religious oppression benefits everybody, not just one gender. It allows all of us to be ourselves without fear of judgment. Let's create a society where everyone is valued and respected, regardless of gender. Breaking free empowers all of us. Now remember that these are all just stories, not literal events, but Norea, Eve, and Lilith are more than just characters in ancient texts. They're archetypes symbolizing defiance and the struggle against oppression. It's about tapping into the spirit of rebellion and resistance that they represent. Embracing these archetypes means challenging the oppressive systems, demanding our rights, and refusing to be silenced. It's about finding that inner rebel, that strength, that courage within ourselves, and using it to tear down the walls of inequity. The church, they're no better than the archons, trying to control us, to limit our potential, to keep us in ignorance. But we won't stand for it. We can't let them continue to distort the truth, and we will rise like Norea and challenge their system. And they can't hold us back because we are the children of the divine light, and we will not be deceived. No matter our gender, when we fight for freedom and against oppressive systems of control, we embody these symbols of resistance. We are the divine Eves, Noreas, and Liliths, challenging the archonic systems of oppressive religion. So let's honor the rebels of Eden. Let's embody their spirit. Let's have their courage course through our veins and fuel our fight for freedom for all. It's time for a new world, a neogenesis. We are the new beginning. We are neogenians. Now, if you like this, check out my video all about the secret story of creation banned by the church. And if you like what my channel is about, support my work on Patreon or join on YouTube at tier 2 or higher to get access to members-only videos every single week. And a big shout out to everyone who supports.